Good morning. I say that because I am up early. I was hoping to get some peace and quiet. Sometimes I like to wake up early, or I try to wake up early every day, a little bit before my kids are awake, so I can get some nice, quiet, reflective time, read a book, get some writing done. Oh, hi. There you go. Yep. All right, thank you. Maybe some journaling, some writing. But lately they have risen to meet the occasion and have gotten up the same time I do. And some mornings I just can't leave them in their room as they start throwing toys or fighting or they need to pee. And so I don't know what to do about that, but I do not think I'm going to wake up any earlier than I'm already waking up, because that just seems crazy and like a silly competition with them. So I'm at a loss, but today I had to let them out early. So with my original plans thrown out the window, figured that I could at least front the Sonic episode for you, because I had to do that anyway, and I knew I had to do it alone. So why not now? Why not make hay while the sun has not yet risen? So that's what I'm doing. This is the Sonic episode, everybody. The Sonic 3 episode, to be more specific. So yeah, I saw this back in December with my older kids, and Dustin saw it as well. And we talked about it. So without any further ado, I hope you have a good day. I hope you find some nice quiet. But before you find any quiet, put me and Dustin in your ears and hear us talk about Sonic 3, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and also Down with Mufasa, and Down with Disney, and Down with horrible, cynical, corporate movies. It's so hard to say. So painful to think about. Okay, that's it from me. Anyway, Sonic 3.
Sonic 3.
Wee!
Konichi, what? Get down!
It's time, Shadow. Finally, we will have our revenge. But what good is a dastardly plot if you can't conspire with family?
There's 2 Eggmen now?
Double your villains, double your fun. Any last words?
Nice magic marble, real scary. That actually is real scary. Trick shot. Tom, Maddie, we need your help on a super... Knuckles, do you mind?
Oh, excuse me.
Tom, Maddie, we need your help on a super dangerous top secret mission.
When?
Are you ready?
We were born ready.
All right, boys, try and keep up.
Come on, Granddaddy-O. We've got
Dirt to do.
with Shadow's power, we can rule humanity. When we're done, there won't be anything left to rule. That is dark.
Somebody better call Google Maps.
Life's all about the choices we make. Remember to listen to your heart. You're gonna make the right choice when it matters the most.
One head dog to another. Who does your highlights?
The more you talk, the harder I want to hit you.
This ends now.
Our destiny awaits. You were right about one thing. This ends now.
All right, so this is the third Sonic movie, directed by... Did Jeff Fowler do the other two?
He did.
Yes, he did. All right, good for Jeff. Okay, so yeah, we've got the usual suspects back in this movie. Got Jim Carrey, Ben Schwartz, Kristen Ritter's in it for a little bit. She's high bill.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. A lot of the humans are actually.
Yeah.
Almost unjustifiably.
Yes, correct.
Tika Sumpter is in here again. Idris Elba, Keanu Reeves, and I want to make sure we give a shout out to Colleen O'Shaughnessy.
Yes.
And Shemar Moore. Why not? Because I said and he's there for a second.
There you go.
He's there for like one frame.
Correct.
Shemar less.
Hi. Aha.
Okay, so in this movie, everything's cool. Like the beginning of every Sonic movie, everything's cool. Everyone's hanging out and having a good time. And then somebody bad shows up. Someone bad and CG. And this time it's Shadow, voiced by Keanu Reeves. And so Sonic and Knuckles and Tails are kind of in a mission to sort of stop Shadow / figure out what's his deal.
Yes.
That's the plot. That's the premise.
Yep.
Okay, Dustin. What did you think of this movie?
I enjoyed it. I think so. This is going to be a little bit of a biased fan review, but look, I'll rate it twice. I'm going to rate it once as me, which is I gave it 4 stars. I don't love it. It's still not what I want from a Sonic movie,
right?
But it is. The highs are really high, even if there are still some lows that I don't love.
Yeah. The lows are tolerable.
The lows are tolerable. The highs are really high. And so because of that, I say 4 stars. Now, if I'm judging it completely divorced from the Sonic franchise and my appreciation for it, it's probably more like a 3 or 3.5. It's fine. It's good. I don't, again, don't love it, but I do enjoy it. And I think it's totally solid as a family film. Again, not what I would do.
Yeah.
But totally serviceable for what it is. This is its own thing, right? Like I continually forget that they refer to each other as aliens in this. Like it's just so weird to me that they do that, but like this is its own thing.
Right.
So, okay, fine. Yeah, like as a weird offshoot, non-canonical multiverse, Elseworlds Sonic, this is totally fine. And I think your kids will enjoy it because it is made for them. This movie is made more for people like me, like it's drawing from a seminal piece of our childhood in order to make this work. Yeah. But it is still even so not made for me. So I can appreciate it. It's certainly more like the games than ever before, but it's still not quite where I want it to be.
Yeah. And so I took my kids to the movie. I took my big kids. And they really enjoyed it. And part of that is because, Sonic characters are in the popular consciousness for my kids' age group because of like Netflix and, games like Sonic Colors and all that stuff. Like there's, and probably not the existing Sonic media that we watched or grew up on, but like Sega has done enough of a job lately putting Sonic into children's eyeballs.
Yes.
To that where when we get to the post-credits stuff in this movie, my kids shouted out their names before I knew who the people were.
Who it was. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, okay. So like my kids are they're higher up to scale than me on the Sonic fan scale.
Sure.
They've surpassed me. They've beaten me. They don't need me anymore. And soon they won't need you, Dustin.
Oh no.
Enjoy it while you can.
Oh no.
My kids are coming.
Yep.
I think that these movies are at least consistent.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, they made the right decisions this time to minimize the roles of the human characters in favor of more animated stuff. Now, we speculated that one reason they did that was because they were forced to shoot without the actors during the strike. And so it's possible they just did it so they could keep the production going. Because we saw stills, right, of just of like stand-ins holding like the models of the characters for lighting reference. Yes. And there were no like actors around, and we were all like, are they still shooting the movie without the actors? And that, so for whatever reason, why ever it happened, it led to the right outcome, which is I'm sorry, but we need to de-emphasize James Marsden and Tika Sumpter and their friends and relatives, because that's just not why I'm here. And honestly, my kids don't care that much about the human characters. Like, that's the thing. Like you build in, like in the first couple movies, like you build in all these things, like with like we're having to introduce James Marsden, we're having to do all this warm up and establish his character. And like, my kids aren't old enough to be interested in what is going on with this adult man. Yeah. And I am not as interested, and he's not written to the level to where me, an adult man, is interested in him as an adult man. So he fails the smell test for both demographics. So that's why the human stuff in these movies is boring to everyone, because it's written for neither of us.
It's so funny because there's a Sonic TV series called Sonic X where Sonic has a human friend and the friend is a kid. Right. And that makes infinitely more sense to me if they had done Tika Sumpter and James Marsden have a child and the child is our point of view character. That would have made way more sense because kids can latch onto that.
Yes.
I don't understand why a kid is going to be like, oh, but he dreams of being more than a small town cop. Kids don't care.
It's like, I don't care what he wants to do for a living. I don't give a shit.
Who cares?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Oh, he's got a mortgage. Ooh.
Oh, no.
I don't even know what that means.
Well, you got to pay for your house? Oh.
Good for you. Get a job, I guess.
So I think the movie is solid, just like the others, but I think it's probably the best one so far of them, just from sheer lack of annoying side characters. And it benefits, like I said, from franchise momentum. That's what I'm calling it. It may be called that already. I don't care. That's what I'm calling it.
Sure.
And we aren't having to establish massive entities in every film. We've done all the labor intensive startup work, and that is the challenge that goes into. That's why we were like, you got to be easy on these movies when they first start out. Like with the first Sonic movie, there's plenty of problems with it, but I think we both were like, but it's the first movie. Let them get going. You know, it was a solid establishment. I hope they do this in the future. Let's let them learn some lessons. And you know, they did. They have. There was the Knuckles TV show, which you said was terrible. But all in all, I mean, this one is a whole lot of Sonic running and a whole lot of Sonic talking and not a whole lot of James Marsden taking up screen time to save money. So
and yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly like a huge step in the right direction. The other is like embracing the video game-ness of it. So the fact that this is, albeit an indirect, but an adaptation of one of the games in particular, that features music from the games. It's like, this is the first time that we're seeing it embrace what it is. And so I'm like, oh, I really like this. Like, even in the last act, like, this isn't a spoiler because you can see it in the posters. Jim Carrey is wearing, I mean, it's basically Dr. Eggman's costume from the games.
Yeah.
And you know, he's got on the fat suit and whatever else. Like, he's more embodying this character than ever before. It's so strange that this franchise, number one, it's mind blowing to think that they've made 3 movies in 4 years.
Yeah.
The first movie came out in 2020. So
wow.
In 4 years, we've had 3 movies. That's mind blowing to me.
Yeah, it is.
Secondly, it's mind blowing that they've continually listened and done what people want them to do. Yeah. So even as far back as like Ugly Sonic and then the redesign of Sonic, like they didn't have to do that. They did it at an added cost because they realized like, oh, this is off-putting. Yeah. And it's not going to show our product in the best light. So there you go. They showed that they're willing to listen. With the second movie, there's another step in the right direction. It's like, look, we still have these vestiges of all the things that came before that we have to pay off, all these human characters and all of that. By the time you get here, you can start like letting go of that kind of stuff. And it wouldn't bother me at all if the next film is fully animated. If they're able to do... I remember you said that
about the second one. You said if they go fully animated from here on out, that's fine. We've launched the character, we've grounded him, and now we can just go into animation land. And we...
Correct.
You know, and then these are just either whatever CG animated or I wouldn't even care if it just stylistically was just inexplicably
just changes.
Just regular animated. You know?
Yeah, why not?
But yeah, I mean, why shoot plates in a real forest? Like if you don't have to, anyway.
Right.
Yeah, no, and like there's a moment in the movie where like Sonic and Shadow are flying and they crisscross, and someone pointed out like that's the Sonic 2 cover.
It's exactly. Yeah,
like that's because it's a splash panel shot. I knew it was something, but I didn't know what it was. But there are people who are like, it's Sonic 2, you know? Yeah.
Yep. Right.
My kids didn't know that though. See what I mean?
Right.
Like they're past
but again,
me.
that because it adapts that particular game, that was for me.
Yeah.
Like that was for me. I grew up with it. I saw that on the title screen of that game over and over and over.
Yeah.
Like I immediately recognized it. Like, oh, they did the thing.
Yeah.
And the one that weirdly gave me the most like joy was there's a moment early in the film where Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles are going to Tokyo to investigate what Shadow is. Yeah. And they're in a plane or in a helicopter, and they're about to dive out. And a gun agent comes up to them or whatever, and Sonic goes, no in-flight snacks or movies. I'm out of here. And that's an exact quote. That's Sonic's first line from that game. And so I'm like, oh, they're doing the thing. Like they're pulling dialogue straight from the game.
That's fine.
And so it's stuff like that where I'm like, there's a clear attention to detail here. Now, come to find out, I did not know this until now, which is weird because you feel like I would have known this a couple movies ago. Jeff Fowler was an animator on the game Shadow the Hedgehog.
Really?
So his ties to the franchise go way back to his like animation days. So he's really familiar with this character of Shadow.
Yeah.
And like always wanted to bring him in.
God, it was 20 years ago.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons why Shadow is being brought in before some of the other maybe more legacy characters like Amy or whatever. Like it's Jeff just loves Shadow, and I'm grateful to him because I love Shadow. Like Shadow is my second favorite Sonic character, and I really enjoyed what they did with his character here and what they did with what Keanu did. I think Keanu is probably my favorite Shadow voice now. And it's not like he's particularly doing a voice. It's just,
no, he is not.
It just seems to fit.
Yeah.
So like it sounds natural in a way, like a lot of the other Shadow voices sound really forced. And like you're trying to like Keanu it just sounds like Keanu. I'm like, oh, that just sounds like his voice. Like I don't want to go too far into the weeds on this, but I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the nerdy point of view of the changes to Shadow's story. Obviously, we're adapting something from another medium. There have to be changes, not just because it's another medium, but because this world is a very different world than the world of the games. So. In the games, and this will tie into one of my complaints with the film, and I want to see if you agree, like structurally, because I think the film has a couple of structure issues, but one big structure issue, and so it ties into this. So in the games, Gerald Robotnik is a good scientist. Like he's trying to make the world a better place, specifically because he has a granddaughter named Maria, who is ailing, she's sick, and she's dying, and she will die on Earth. And so he takes her up onto the space colony because she has a better chance of survival there in like, you know, the 0 G's of space and whatever else. So it doesn't make much sense, but sure. And so, so he takes her up there, and he's going to, you know, figure out how to cure her. That's the plan. Like, give her the best chance at a long life while I've tried to find a cure. And so this is what he's doing. And he gets approached by the government, by the United Federation, and by Gunn. And they're like, hey, we want you to create like this. There's this thing, Project Shadow. It's trying to find the cure for, like, find immortality, basically. And we want you to do this. And so immediately he's like, no, I'm not interested in playing God like that, until he realizes, like, oh, this might actually tie in to what I'm trying to do with Maria. So sure. So he reluctantly accepts. Over the course of it, we find, like, it's implied throughout several games that Gerald Robotnik's also a little bit of a historical nerd and kind of an adventurer. So he saw this mural of an ancient, like, serpent, and so it was a prophecy. And so he took a lizard and tried to imbue it with the chaos energy that would be needed to, you know, like, sustain immortal life. But it wasn't successful. And it created this, like, atrocity, this, you know, crazy bioengineered lizard called the BioLizard. And the BioLizard was a mess and required all kinds of mechanics to, you know, survive, but, like, was just not functional. And so in his studies, he also found another mural, and the mural depicts an evil entity and doing battle with what appears to be a hedgehog. And so this is a prophecy of Supersonic battling Dr. Robotnik. But he decides then his ultimate life form, the thing that will be the cure for immortality, or the cure for mortality.
I think Knuckles is the cure for immortality.
is going to be a hedgehog. And so the reason why Shadow's quills go up, right, is because he's modeled after Supersonic. Like, he's bioengineered by Gerald to, like, he's completely made in a test tube. And so he becomes the ultimate life form. The experiments are a success, but it takes constant care and monitoring of Shadow. And Shadow becomes friends with Maria, and Maria kind of, you know, imprints on him, like, what, you know, her soul and her hopes and her dreams. And, you know, he softens and, you know, decides, like, this is my best friend and I love this person, and, you know, all this thing. And then Gunn pulls the plug on the whole operation. And in order to wipe everything out, like, they don't want this getting out, they come on board of the space colony and they kill everyone, and they murder Maria in cold blood. Ugh. And Gerald in front of Shadow, and Shadow escapes. And Gunn collects his, like, he is in an escape pod. They collect his pod, take him to an underground location, and seal him up, just like in the start of this film. Yeah. And so, and then Gerald goes insane, and because of the death of, you know, well, first his granddaughter, but also all of his research, his life's work, everything's gone. Yeah. He goes crazy and decides to use the space colony laser, the Eclipse cannon, to destroy Earth and all of this. And if that doesn't work, then I have the BioLizard who will drive this entire space station into the Earth and kill as many people as he can. And, like, that's the whole thing. Wow. And so Sonic then befriends Shadow, and, or, you know, whatever with Shadow, and then they decide to stop the Eclipse cannon, but the BioLizard remains. And so now, like, the final fight is they have to destroy the BioLizard, which is essentially like Shadow's, you know, weird failed experiment half brother. And so, it's this weird thing, but, like, that's the whole story, right? So in telling this, they then change it to where, like, Shadow's like an alien, and they're monitoring him and trying to do these experiments on him. He still becomes friends with Maria, but there's a couple problems that I have with the change to the backstory. And the first is, I don't understand why Shadow is allowing them to experiment on him in the first place. He clearly could escape.
Yeah.
In the case of the games, it makes more sense that he is willingly subjecting himself to this because he's created by Gerald. Like this, I don't know what I am. I'm whatever you made me to be. And I want to be here because you're my dad and Maria's my sister. And I want to be here. And in this movie, he's an experiment that other than Maria, you never really get the sense that Gerald feels any kind of way about Shadow. And so this leads me to my big thing, not just logically of why would Shadow allow this to happen to him? Like, why wouldn't he escape? Even if he likes Maria, like, why would he not just run away? Yeah. But also, or take her with him. But apart from that, the film, and this is where the structure is off. The film desperately wants to hang on to the reveal of Jim Carrey as Gerald Robotnik for a moment when when Ivo Robotnik sees Gerald for the first time, so do we.
Right.
And I think this is a big mistake. And the reason is, one, you've spoiled Gerald in all the marketing. There's no reason for this. Like it is a selling point of the film that Jim Carrey's playing two roles.
Yeah.
There's no reason to withhold that. Secondly, what it does is it makes the very first time we see Gerald, he's already evil, and we never get to see him be good. Yeah. We never get to see him happy, except for the one scene when he comes to find Maria and Shadow and says, "Come on, kids, we have to go."
Right.
And by then it's too little too late. And so what this does is, for me, for someone of my age who grew up with that game, it should be an incredibly easy, nostalgic, emotional pull to just have Shadow and Maria together. Like that should immediately do something to people of my age. Mm-hmm. This film, I think, actively works against it. And what I mean by that is it does show a few scenes of Shadow and Maria together, and that's great. Yeah. But by not showing Gerald in on that, it does not allow the emotion of the situation to set in. And they don't actually bring up the idea that Maria may also be sick herself in this. Right. Which adds to this like ticking clock element of like, no matter what, Shadow loves this girl, but she's probably not long for this world. And that already should like be an easy thing to manipulate an audience to an emotional reaction, to have a moment where she tells him like, "Hey, I'm sick." And and then when the rug is pulled out from under them and she goes even earlier than anticipated, that should be a really easy moment for him to have an emotional breakdown. And so it doesn't show Gerald early enough for us to get a feel for his relationship with Maria or his relationship with Shadow. Secondly, it doesn't allow Shadow to have the emotional weight of a sick friend. Third, when she does, and whatever, spoiler alert, who cares? When Maria does die, it is indirectly rather than a direct gunshot to her. Yeah. Which obviously you probably don't want to show a child being shot in your film. I get it. Yeah. But it's way more impactful. Yeah. And then add to that, to my recollection, correct me if I'm wrong, we did not get a moment of Shadow reacting to that death. It almost immediately flashed back to the present. Like you see him and Gerald kneeling by her body, but there doesn't, like in the games, there's this thing where Shadow is in the escape pod, like let me out, and she's sending him to Earth as she's dying, and so he can't escape. He has to just sit there and watch like his escape pod leave and leave her behind. And so he doesn't get that closure of kneeling by her body. He doesn't get, all of that. It just feels way more impactful that all of it is ripped away from him. Not only her, but the grief of her. He's immediately ejected from the space station and then immediately put on ice. There's no moment for him to grieve. So when he wakes up, he's in full on grieving and anger. It's as if it just happened.
Yeah.
I don't get that sense here. And I think so the film kind of, it's like it wants it to be emotional, but it's also acting as if it doesn't want it to be emotional. So I never got emotional in the way that I think I should have. And so I think that's the film's biggest flaw. And so I've been trying to sort of play back in my head, because I can do without the bio-lizard and I can do without all the other things. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff in the games that they reveal about Shadow later, but like I can do without all of that. My biggest thing is that death of Maria should have had me choked up. And it didn't. And so I'm trying to like dissect why it didn't. And I think it has to do with all of those things. We see like a pensive Maria and a happy Maria with Shadow, but we don't see her happy really with Gerald, and we don't really get to see like all of that. And then also like the twist of Gerald going from good scientist to mad scientist should also have you feeling, like trepidation and like fear over him. Like, look, this guy's gone crazy. Like he was a good guy and now he's not. It sucks that we didn't get to see him before. And, as just like a cool grandpa, which is what he should have been. So I don't know. I think the film it wanted to be emotional, but it actively worked against it unknowingly. Now I'm curious if it plays differently to somebody who doesn't know the story of Shadow as intimately as I do, or if it plays differently to kids who maybe don't want to see a child die. When I was 12 or 13 or whatever and played this game, I was like, yeah, dead kids. But I but I was also like, JK, I was actually quite sad. But I don't know. Like honestly, like Sonic Adventure 2 was the first game I remember like almost crying in because of Maria. And so like it should have been an easy sell for me. Did you find it emotionally resonant, or did you find it empty?
It was kind of empty. Yeah. I mean, it other than like, oh, this is clearly sad, and I knew a little bit. I didn't know like all the intricacies, but I knew about Maria, and I knew that like a big part of Shadow's story was her death. Yeah. But I didn't know any specifics about it. But like, yeah, it was just sort of like, yep. And then she died. And then I was like, now I want revenge. And so I just decided to break out of the things one day. And it's like, oh, you can just break out, so. Right. So it's just, yeah, it's a little clunky that whole flashback. But you're dead on the money. It's probably totally to make the story palatable for audiences. And so they water it down. And like you said, just the fact that it's not like Gunn fucking up and like killing her and being like the bad guy and introducing all this moral complexity to the organization. Yeah. So because of that, Shadow works for a not nice man. He could escape if he wants to, but he doesn't. It's just all those little things don't work without those conditions setting the tone for that story. Yeah. And I think that's like the biggest gripe I have with the film, like beyond anything else, human characters, blah, 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 whatever. I do have one other gripe, but we'll get to that in just a second. The other thing is like, but the main thing for me is Shadow, like that story should have been more emotionally resonant than it was. And even down to like at the end, his supposed sacrifice, like this happens at the end of Sonic Adventure 2 as well. And it's always framed like this, like in the game, I think like the last thing Maria says to Shadow as she's dying and as she's sending him to Earth is like,
she's obsessed with Earth. Like she wants to go to Earth. You know, she knows she may never get to go there because she's sick and whatever. It's not good for her. But she wants to go there. So she sends Shadow and she's like, you know, give them a chance to be happy. Like I want you to help the people on Earth be happy, right? Like that's what I want you to do. And so like at the end, when Earth is in danger, Shadow hears those words, give them a chance to be happy. And that's what spurs on his sacrifice. It's the words of Maria, the dying words of Maria that change him. In this, it's the words of Sonic in a way, or like the mercy of Sonic, which is great and that's fine. But it also robs the emotional resonance of Maria. Yeah. And so like that, like to me, it's all of that, like the setup of Maria's final words and the payoff. Like he's so angry, and then the payoff is, but remember her words, remember what she actually wanted. And so that was what brings him back. And I think that was maybe handled a little better in the game. And interestingly enough, they just did a video game called Shadow Generations. In that, like they completely nail this again, where Shadow is essentially in this void outside of space and time, and he's allowed to see Maria again. Like she comes from a time before her death, and he's, you know, present Shadow. And so he can't tell her like you're going to die, but like I get more time with you.
Can you imagine being told like, hey, your friend from the future wants to see you again? Again? I mean,
what do you mean?
We got a time travel machine. Go look at it.
You moved to Brooklyn.
Am I going to die? I feel like I'm going to die.
Right. And so, you know, he's being Shadow and like angry and whatnot. And she's like, you know, who are you? Like, this isn't what I wanted you to be. And so it's like they get to revisit it, that even in the years after Sonic Adventure 2, after his sacrifice, they just kind of reset Shadow to be angry more. And so finally in the newest game, he runs into her and she's like, why are you like this? And he's like, oh, you're right. Like, this isn't what you wanted for me. And so anyway, it's like, it's an emotional payoff, and like that should be the crux of this whole thing. And I just feel like they botched that a little bit. The other gripe I have, I don't know if anybody, I haven't heard anybody say this, but it's something that I felt. I do feel like, as much as I love Jim Carrey, they kept cutting to him a little too often.
Yeah,
in that final act.
They overused him a tad.
Yeah, there's like that fight between Gerald and Ivo where they're like using like claws and like other things.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know what this is. This is, hey, let the cameras go. Jim, just do Jim stuff.
Yeah.
And okay, but I'm also like, but there's like an action sequence with some butt rock going on outside. I want to see that again, please. You can't go from like butt rock, like live and learn, to like, I'm gonna get you. I got a claw.
Can you take me higher?
I'm like, oh, come on.
To a place.
That's my only other gripe. It's a little too much Jim Carrey by the end.
Which is a strange gripe from us, because normally I'm like, put as much Jim Carrey as you want in there. But that felt like them being like, okay, we have like 3 days left in the shooting schedule, and now we have our actors back. And Jim, we need you to do as much as possible for the next 36 hours.
This is Jeff Fowler saying, you know, Jim said he was retired after Sonic 2. He's doing us a real solid here.
Yeah.
What if he retires after this one? Yeah, we got to use him.
Yeah.
Just let him do his thing. Just roll. This is all digital. It's fine.
Right. And it's like, we'll make the VFX artists create something to justify all his actions.
Correct.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a little too much. It's a little over. When that started happening, I was like, oh, okay, I knew we wouldn't get out of this movie without some kind of silliness, you know.
Yeah.
Some stuff. So,
but I did love the moment where, and we're in spoilers here, people. I did love the moment where Sonic is about to end Shadow's life. And then Sonic turns off the supersonic thing. They have a little conversation. And then they're like, all right, let's do this. And they stand up and they like clap their hands and they're both immediately supersonic and super Shadow. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, that's dope. That's and cool. Then the music starts from the game. And I'm like, yeah, okay, you got me. You got me, you movie, you. I'm like, I don't feel emotional, but you got me.
But I feel seen.
I feel like you know what I wanted. I said for a long time, if that song was not in this movie, we would riot.
Yes.
And I'm glad they did it.
How did this do against The Lion King? Against against Mufasa, yeah.
It did win the weekend.
I remember it winning the weekend because I was very, very happy. I spent not only did I spend $50 to get me and my kids to the movies, I also spent $50 on the day before buying tickets to the wrong showing.
Oh no!
At a non-refundable theater.
Oh no!
So I gave this film $100 of my dollars.
$100.
So when it won the weekend, I was like,
yeah, that was me.
Yeah, I was like, woo.
So it did win the weekend. Its opening weekend was the same opening weekend as Mufasa. So Sonic grossed $60 million. Mufasa grossed 35. So it kind of trampled it. No pun intended. Trampled Mufasa. But then the next weekend, Sonic won again, but only by a slim margin. 37 million to 36 million. And then this most recent weekend in January, the first weekend of January, Mufasa finally overtook it. And so in its third week, Sonic dropped to the number 2 spot, allowing Mufasa to claim the number 1 spot. Mufasa has earned a lot more money overall than Sonic. Worldwide, Mufasa is sitting at $478 million, whereas Sonic is sitting at $338 million. So
the budget's got to be bigger for Mufasa.
It has to be. I don't understand why Mufasa had international legs at all, but
yeah.
Let's see. I don't even know why I had domestic legs. Let's see. Budget for Sonic 3.
Sonic 3 was like 122.
122.
Yeah.
Mufasa was right about 200.
Okay, that's small. That's less than I would have thought.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
I don't know what I want. I don't know what I want and expect to happen with this kind of stuff, man. Like, I want more movies like Sonic where like it seems to be made with some degree of love, even if it is for, Paramount. Like it's directed by a guy who has connections to the games. Like clearly, it's only 3 movies he's directed, and a short film. Like his career is just Sonic. Like that's his life's mission. And not to step on Barry Jenkins or anything, but like, and I'm sure like that guy doesn't sign on to a Disney movie unless he thinks there's a cool story to be told. I'm just sort of surprised, and you see like clips on YouTube of like Barry Jenkins like talking to Lin-Manuel Miranda about the songs they wrote. And I'm just like, oh, this is just feels so gross and uninspired to me.
Right.
And then the movie goes and does well, and you're like, I don't know what to think. Like, does I don't know. I get in these pockets sometimes where like I feel like, okay, like I feel like the population at large has had enough of whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then it turns out you lose, right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, do I need to change? Or do I, or is it what,
Well, I agree. What it makes me feel is that the public is really out of touch.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not out of touch. This is denial. Welcome to the denial cast. I'm not out of touch. You're out of touch. It's legitimately, I think, a matter of the public is unaware of artistic merit. Now, having said that, am I saying that Mufasa has no artistic merit? No.
Right.
What I'm saying is Mufasa shouldn't exist. It's a film that maybe somebody somewhere thought they had a powerful story to tell, but my hunch is that the film started at its most basic genesis of an idea. The little nugget was, hey, how do we make more money off The Lion King?
That's exactly it. It's not so much like it's more like I just suspect that this was not made with non-corporate motives first and foremost.
Whereas it definitely feels like Jeff Fowler pitched to Paramount.
Yeah. I
want to make Sonic. Here's how I would do it.
Yeah.
Rather than Paramount saying, we have Sonic, we have to make something, go. It feels like it started with a pitch rather than started with like an open call for pitches, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And like a prequel to The Lion King, just as a story, is so it's one of those things. It's like, well, of course you could, but just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just like with everything, like, yes, things are certainly possible. That doesn't mean they're the best idea or worth it or creative or whatever. Like, possible isn't the mark for quality or a reason for something to exist.
Right.
I could have many more kids than I have now.
Sure.
Okay. Like, me and Nick Cannon both, right?
Yeah.
Should I do that? No.
Right.
No,
Correct.
I shouldn't.
Correct.
Now,
yes.
But I can. So I guess that means I should, right? Because if I don't, that's like a missed opportunity, right? It's like, hey, Disney, no one else is going to make a Mufasa prequel. They can't.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's this thing where it's like, well, someone else is going to do it. We got to do it first. It's like, no.
I think the problem is, and I can totally put myself in these shoes. I'm sitting on a thing that could potentially make me hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Do I not do it?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I'd want to think that if I knew for a fact, okay, I need to justify my job.
Yeah. Yes.
And there's something I could very easily do to make us 200 million real easy.
Yep.
Yeah. Let me. I don't know. I mean,
because it comes off. It feels like this. Like, I'm going to say it in a way that's not as delicate, but it comes off like this. It comes off like, okay, business people work for a business. A movie studio is a business. The product is films. The films are supposed to be good because that usually correlates with popular, but that's not always the case because the population got dumber and is not given and is not, kept up to snuff on what is creative and what is artistic to an extent. And the studios realize that and realize they don't have to try as hard to make movies that make money. So they don't. And so they can save money by hiring less creative people or telling even less creative people what to do. And that's just the way it is. And it's not the right way to say it. It's the fast way to say it because I don't think the population is dumb, but I think the population, like most people you talk to, it's just a reality. And this is the bubble that you and I are in. We're like, I can't believe people watch this shit. Like most people don't see movies as equally important and as entertaining as football or whatever, or TikTok. It's just something to entertain.
It's just a thing. Yeah.
And it doesn't, and so a lot of people's primary reason to see something, whether we like it or not, is novelty.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. They don't think like, what? Unless it's so bad that they're sitting in the movie thinking about the story like, this sucks, or it leaves them with an empty feeling. But even that empty feeling doesn't save in your brain as negative. It just saves as unmemorable. And unfortunately, people don't consider unmemorable to be a signal of failure. Whereas for us, it's like, film shouldn't be unmemorable. A film should be memorable.
Yes.
And just the fact that because film and movie making is a business, it's always going to, increasingly so, service the company, the shareholders, the IP, the bottom line. And that's sort of that's the downside of of stuff like this. It's just unfortunately, with the ability to use CG and to make a lot of things happen on screen that used to not be possible, the people who have that kind of money have really bad ideas, and they own all the copyrights. That's their only smart thing they did, is buy up copyrights and lock down scripts. That they have rights to in perpetuity. And now it's like, well, we've got the money. You can't make a Sonic movie without this kind of money. We're not shitting on Sonic. You can't make this, Mufasa prequel. We're Disney. It has to be us. And we did all this work for this Unreal Engine or whatever to make all the CG lions. And we want to use those models again. And like, we already did all the work. Like,
we have them.
Like, we've got it. How can we keep using that? And instead of doing Lion King 1.5 or doing or actually remaking stuff that does exist, which I oddly wish they had done, they're like, let's do something even worse. Let's create a prequel that
unnecessary
fucks up,
prequel
that ruins the lineage of Mufasa.
Correct.
And it's just like,
I think the analogy that I always go back to is like, you go to a theme park and there are two types of rides. There's a roller coaster with a very hastily slapped on
story.
Not even a story, but just images.
Yeah.
Right. It's a vague theming. It's, hey, this character is the color blue, so the coaster is also blue.
Yeah. You go on the Incredible Hulk and it's just like, the coaster's green. You're on the coaster. You're hulking out.
That's it. There's that. And then there's also like a really intricately crafted dark ride where, it's got an intricate ride system. It's got, all these multimedia things. You've got 3D, you've got smells, you have like, it's a whole experience.
Like the Mummy,
right?
you've got fire.
The Mummy. You're moving forward and backwards and upside down. And it's all related to a story that's coherent and and gripping. The general public doesn't care about the difference,
right?
The general public sees no difference, and that's a sad realization. But the truth is, you're absolutely right. I think the general public. This is not the people who are listening to this podcast, because the people that listen to this podcast are more attuned. But the general public.
Please don't leave.
Yes, is pander. Is for sure only there because it kills a few hours. Yeah. And that's it. And so at the end of the day, they're not
water
sitting,
cooler stuff. Like, it's just
it's water cooler.
Lots of
it's
people
an experience.
I've seen this on social a lot. What's up with this? I bet you more people have seen Saltburn than will ever watch. What's something good we saw lately? I don't know. Jennifer's Body. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just
sure.
Like, that's more people will have seen that just because it was talked about.
Yes. Yeah. It was.
And it's on
buzzworthy.
Amazon, and it's right there.
Yes. It is buzzworthy. It's convenient, and that's what it all is. It's the equivalent of like the McRib is back. Go get the McRib because everyone's talking about it and it's convenient. It's on your corner McDonald's. But like, for me, like, I've gone to the movies with people who are not as discerning, and they generally leave and they don't ask the question, what'd you think? Or, and they don't say things like, well, that was good, but, or I wouldn't have, or there's none of that. All you get if you ask somebody like that, did you enjoy it? They go, yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, cool. What'd you like about it? It looked cool.
It's fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Had a good time.
Yeah.
What did you not like about it? And they'll be like, I don't know. It's fine.
Kind of long,
Yeah, that might be the extent of it.
Like an objective observation.
Or it'll be something like, the theater was loud. Like
Yeah.
it's something about that. The floors were sticky. It's not even like it's not even like a critical, like, well, I think if you're really going for emotional resonance here, you need to hit this point in the first act so that you can pay that off later. Like, no one's thinking about it in those terms. And so it cheapens the experience and relegates this art form that we love to be disposable.
Yeah.
And because they're not thinking about it like we are, where we're looking at it going, would I ever own it in my library of films?
Right.
And instead they're going, hey, I'm never going to buy a movie again, so it doesn't matter to me.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I saw it and now I'm done. I'll never watch it again. Whereas you and I often go back to movies we love over and over and over. I think the general public don't do that. It's like
eating a meal, it's like it's just as disposable. You're just like, oh, it's just food. I was hungry and now I'm not. You know, I don't care.
I need to kill an hour and a half. Yeah.
And someone being like, do you care that there's like pesticides and like chemicals in your food? And you're like, not really. It's like someone.
I do if you bring it up, but I don't think about it if you don't bring it up.
Yeah, stop talking about it. Yeah,
right.
Like, but it's like eating a meal with someone who at the very least appreciates good food and can articulate why, and or knows how to cook good food themselves.
Sure. Yep.
And I feel like everyone in every like artistic field, mildly artistic field, because I don't think like tax attorneys feel this way.
Sure.
But anyone who does anything creative for a living, I think there's a part of you. I think every one of those people goes home and just thinks like, I'm fighting a losing battle against a growing populace that has no appreciation for my work.
Yep.
And I think that's why, industry wide, worldwide, there's like a collective agreement upon the artistic that there is a growing there's a depreciation of valuing the arts and the humanities, because they are not seen as they're just seen as disposable, and their intrinsic value is being overlooked.
And it's a larger conversation as to why that's happening. And but I think, and I was talking about this with my wife recently, that at least part of the reason, and I think we've talked about this before too, part of the reason has to be the social media TikTok generation is looking at it going, why would I spend an hour and a half watching a film?
Yeah.
Why would I spend 2 hours watching a film? Now, I get it. If you're busy, you're busy. And like, I certainly have been busy lately, so I'm not, like sometimes the runtime of a film is a deterrent.
Yeah. Yep.
But having said that, it is not a deterrent because I don't want to sit through a long movie because I inherently don't like long movies. It's a deterrent because I don't have time.
Yeah.
There's a difference between that. And I certainly have the attention span to watch something for an elongated amount of time.
Yeah.
I don't have the time to devote to it. And so I hope, and especially for like my son, that I will eventually hope he's trained up to like have that ability to view things patiently and not just like, swipe to the next thing, go. Or God forbid, one of the worst things that Disney ever did is this, forgotten thing called second screen. Do you remember this? It was like on the Blu-rays when they first started making Disney Blu-rays. It was like, link up your iPad and your iPad will sync with the film and give you trivia and talk to you and you can play games. And I'm like, one screen of magical moving images is not enough for you people?
I remember there was a couple of Blu-rays. There was one of the Harry Potter Blu-rays I have, I think it's one of the Deathly Hallows ones. It had like a second screen version of the movie where it would picture in picture and Daniel Radcliffe would step on screen and be like, okay, so in this scene, here's what we're doing. And and you were just like, huh? What? Go away.
Hold on. Stop. Go back.
Stop it. You were there. Now you're here. Yeah.
Yeah. I certainly hope that's not a lasting thing. But I don't know, man. These things are cyclical, and we know that old technology comes back and blah blah blah. I hope that the attention span comes back.
Is the attention span old technology?
The attention span is outdated. We got attention span 2.0 now.
Yeah. We need.
We can process so much faster.
It'll come back like vinyl and
right.
The radio.
Yes.
Oh boy. Well, I hope so. I do hope so.
Just imagine the kid that comes back with actual attention span, and he goes to class and is like, "What did you do last night?" And the guy's like, "I scrolled through the first 2 seconds of 37,000 TikTok videos." And the guy's like, "Oh, cool. I watched a movie and it was great."
Yeah.
And I feel productive.
The other guy beats the shit out of him. Like, shut up.
Yeah.
Nerd.
Oh, you think you're better than me?
Yeah.
Did you watch a 2-hour film without their eyes glazing over?
Yeah. Would you watch the things they carried? Huh? Well, you bitch. All right. Okay. Well, yeah. Mufasa is ruining cinema, and that's all I have to say.
I'm not going to blame Mufasa. I'm going to blame Disney in general.
Yeah. Disney really knows how to pioneer cinema sometimes and simultaneously push it backwards.
They know how to pioneer just the degradation of society.
They really know how to bring their contributions to the arts at a net zero.
Yes.
Way to go, Disney. You know just how to cancel yourself out.
Yes.
Stellar job.
Yep.
All right. Okie dokie.
Hey, Disney, one more thing. It would only take a couple of good movies to turn your reputation around. There's enough goodwill in our nostalgic brains that all you have to do is pump out 2, maybe 3 good movies in a row, and the public will forget all the terrible things you've done.
Yep.
Just bear that in mind.
Yep.
The next time you pump out The Jungle Cruise 2.
Yes. Try to hear us over the sounds of you counting your money.
I was gonna say it's Scrooge McDuck in the money bin over here.
I'm sorry, what?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you. The sound of the coins.
This money is so loud. This is the loudest money there is. You know, the more money you have, the louder they make it. It's so that blind people can even know how rich you are. By the loudness.
Quieter your soul gets.
Yeah.
I can't even hear it talking anymore.
I miss my kids.
Always let your conscience be your guide. I don't even have one anymore.
Yeah.
I murdered that cricket.
Or murdered that cricket.
I murdered that cricket.
He said his name was Jiminy. I thought that was weird, so I killed him.
So what's that short for? Jiminathy?
Yeah. Bitch. Would you watch a movie?
Your last name's Cricket and you're a cricket? Hey, I'm Bob Human.
I'm going to deep fry you.
Why do you sound vaguely like Don Knotts? Like you're doing a bad Don Knotts impression.
Okie dokie. I'm not taking the Don Knotts bait tonight.
Oh, come on.
Oh, you should have put me in the air fryer there. Oh, no. Oh, no.
That's Jimmy Stewart.
Was it?
Come on.
Is it? The brochure said there was only going to be a few ostriches. The brochure said you wouldn't put me in the air fryer. Mr. Potter, that's Jimmy Stewart. Mr. Potter, I said Mr. Potter, not put me in a pot.
There's a fine difference there.
It really is. It's a lot of nuance. But thank God we have a voice actor like me to guide everyone.
to bring us through
in case
the
you
treacherous waters.
Got to the end of this hour-long Sonic review and you were hoping for a master class on the differences between Jimmy Stewart and Don Knotts' voices. You're welcome.
Now do Ray Romano and Kermit the Frog.
No charge. I can't. Well, Kermit's kind of like here, and Ray is up here a little bit. Deborah. What else does he say? Oh,
Ma.
Oh, Ma. Oh, no.
I taped over the wedding video. Deborah's going to kill me.
I really wanted to watch the game and I wouldn't have had to tape over it. See, I can't sustain it. It goes into Southern Kermit.
Southern Kermit.
Oh, the goddamn tape's in the fucking machine again, okay? Who the hell's going to fix it? Are you going to fix it? Is he going to fix it? Who's going to fix the tape? Who's going to get the tape? Who's going to... We got to put the wedding back on the tape.
Tonight's very special guest, Barbara Streisand. Yay!
All right. Good night, everybody. Couldn't help ourselves. We got to put the wedding back on the tape.